Hi, it's Joe Pardavila. This is the Forbes Books podcast, and there's been a lot of talk about AR, XR, and the Metaverse lately. So that means there must be a lot of money to be made in AR, XR, and the Metaverse. But where do you begin? This week I'm joined by the founder and CEO of AA Labs, Amber Allen. And this isn't a company that just popped up to capitalize on the hottest trend. Amber founded the company in 2013 with a goal of filling a gap in the marketplace for tech-forward, immersive, yet accessible AR, XR, and Metaverse experiences. We're going to talk about how our team has reached 3 billion screens in projects for clients including AT&T, Twitch, and Dell, what the future of the Metaverse looks like, and why she'll be a gamer girl for life. Amber, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
And I want to start with some of your background. One of the sort of like part of your biography that pops up all the time is this like small town girl who made it big, you know? And to me, as someone who's born and raised within 10 miles of Midtown Manhattan, living in the shadow of like the Empire State Building, it's really hard for me to relate to small town people finally making it big, because for us, if you grew up in like the metro area, you were a path or bus ride away from Midtown Manhattan. So the idea of like someone from a small town becoming incredibly successful, not just like in their town, but like nationally and globally, it's hard for me to wrap my brain around that. So can you take me back to the beginning, growing up in that small town in East Texas, and how you got here? I don't expect every step of the way, but how did that happen to you?
Yeah, I mean, well, Longview, it's a little town out in East Texas, but it's about 2 hours from and 3 hours from Houston and Dallas. So, I love your story of like what you just said about being in the shadows of the Empire State Building. It's one of those you'd see a high rise once a year, It was like one day, I remember being a teenager going, one day I'm going to work in that building. So I definitely grew up in a small town, but I was a big video gamer. So I was lucky that I got to play games and have gamer friends on my little Xbox that were in Germany or around the world. So it made the world smaller and bigger for me and more attainable.
And it's funny because I love sort of like what I did was like I was able to do what I always wanted to do for a living. And that's sort of like what, you as a kid, as a gamer, I'm sure when you were telling your folks or friends, you're like, yeah, I think I'm going to make a living out of this. People are like, what, Amber, what's wrong with you? Did you have that sort of pushback, or not even pushback, but almost like that side eye of like, what are you talking about?
Honey, my daddy was a Baptist preacher.
I was allowed to
be a teacher or a mama.
Yeah, enough said.
Yeah. And so I think that's the part though, of like really looking at something going, not even knowing that it could be an option, and then letting yourself be able to not even dream big, because there's no way I would have dreamed this big. It's just tackling along the way and enjoying the adventures and just say yes.
I want to know, because this the gaming world is something I'm not super familiar with. I play like Assassin's Creed on my Xbox. That's pretty much
nice.
That's my extent of gaming.
It's a good
and
game.
Madden once a year when it comes out. Then I stop playing it after October. But the idea of like getting into that industry and working your way up to building to what you've got now with AA Labs. Take me through the steps you took, because I know your resume is stacked. I mean, you worked at major companies, Reebok, Disney, Warner Brothers. What? Right. I mean, it's stacked. So no one's going to question your CV. But what steps did you take to make it through all those companies?
Well, I think what's important, what I like to say is kind of how do you get through those different that's what people are always saying. Oh, you did so many different socioeconomic levels and you've been around various audiences and growing up. And I think what I love is I just love tech. And I know that I don't know everything about it, but if there are things that I can learn and then I can simplify and explain them to other people, then more people adopt, right? And so for me, it was getting to work at Disney. And then, I was just a merchandiser that then got to go and run the whole entire program for Disney. And then just, being able to be okay with change has been a big piece for me. I love being able to know that I don't know everything about it and be able to ask questions and let people go, oh, have you heard about this? I have no idea what you mean about that. Tell me. And then I'll just start going down rabbit holes. That's the fun thing about tech, isn't it? And gaming.
Yeah. And, you were what I would describe earlier in your career, sort of like an entrepreneur. You sort of had the mindset and thought processes of being a boss, but not owning your own company. And then you have this idea for AA Labs. What was the inspiration to finally become the quote unquote entrepreneur?
Well, you're exactly right. I I think that goes back to where the people say dream big, but if you've not seen it, you're not sure how to dream that big, right? So for me, I just always loved learning. And so getting to work at Warner Brothers and having, Lisa Gregorian was the president of Warner Television. She would let me come over and work on Comic-Con, even though I was in the games division. Well, fast forward now, 10 years later, she's on my advisor board. Wow. So it's really been wonderful of like, how do you get in and just get to grow and learn in whatever space you're at? And so what happened was at Riot Games, I got to be the executive producer of season 2 of Galen Arena. And watching how these live events and these digital events, true hybrid 10 years ago, right? Everybody's talking about hybrid right now, but we were doing that in esports 10 years ago. And watching how the live audience would respond if you put drums, they would start stomping their feet. Remember, my gamers, a lot of us are introverts. Mm-hmm. And so having that kind of camaraderie when everybody said we were kids in a basement and realizing we're not, we're here at 7,860 people at Galen Arena, and then having almost 1 million people on the streams watching, it just struck something in me that I said, I want to create this. I mean, it was the first time my parents actually got to be in the room of something I had created in over 10 years. And so in Longview, they were still there. And so they could just dial in and see, this world. And it was like for the first time, my family kind of understood me as a gamer, but also me as a producer. And I was like, how do I do this for everybody? How do we do this for brands all over? How do you make the room bigger so that it's not so closed off? And I do think that creating the metaverse space, which we're working in now, is really wonderful for that because it's just the next phase of the internet.
And so it was 2013 when you founded AA Labs. And to me, as I read that statement, I'm like, boy, Amber was really ahead of the curve here. What was it like pitching this company in 2013 to folks who were like, what are you talking about? If you pitch this now, Amber, you probably you're getting deals from VCs left and right. But 2013, I can't imagine it being easy.
Yeah, and you know what it was? You're exactly right. Michio Kaku says it the best. He's always like, you can have the best technology in the world, but if people cannot understand it or are too scared to adopt it, it will not be picked up, right? And so what we ended up doing is getting to bring companies like HTC Vive to market, and then I'd build technology around that company of how to show what the tech is. Like my why for the first 7 years of this company was I believe innovators and adopters will change the world. And then it's my job and this company's job to bring them to market. Because remember where I grew up, right?
Yeah.
So being able to help people not feel like Luddites, because I say that all the time in technology, and realize they're really, a girlfriend of mine came up with this concept of generational infinity. And I so agree. It's not a generation thing of learning tech. It's a generation thing of, do you want to learn and grow? And that's all generations of what I like to call generation infinity.
And AA Labs is described as a leader in developing transformative platform technologies. That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
So for someone who's not as bright as you, me, can you explain what that would? How would you describe? What does that mean? Yeah.
Look, it's really right now exactly what you just said. When we were doing the esports, you realize you're exactly right. The first few years of the company, you realize how far advanced your gamers or your tech early adopters are. Right? Think of like the iPhone when it rolled out. It would take a good 10 years before my parents had it. And so if that is the case, how are you building technologies along the way that people can start understanding, start chewing on so that they will want to adopt? So right now, for us, we built stuff in augmented reality. Now, for anybody that doesn't know augmented reality, it's not your VR headsets where you don't get to see the world. It is, I get to see the world, but I get to hold up my phone, or there are sunglasses. I think Apple will create even better ones. But you hold up your phone and now your real life is enhanced.
Yeah. And for lay folks, the AR, the I guess the game changer for that was, I know it's going to sound hokey, but the Pokemon Go, right? That was sort of
it's not hokey. You're 100% correct. Augmented reality was made adoptable. And I think that's a perfect example. When you create technology that people can play and they can consume without being scary, then they slowly start adopting it more, right? Because anything that we can do, that we can play and interact with, we are less scared of. Now let's add education in that. We did one for Genentech Roche that turned a 4-page white paper into a 30-second animation that kind of floated in front of you like Pokemon.
Cool.
And it told an entire story. Because see, what we consume visually, we can take in 3 to 5 seconds. Wow. Well, how you were to try to talk about that may take 20 minutes. Try writing what you're looking at right now. That's 4 pages. So that is why I am extremely bullish on the product that we built. That's kind of a build your own metaverse toolkit. Because what we visually see, and that's not VR right now, the adaptability is not there. It's more 3D websites.
And so AR, your focus on AR is your company sort of like a soup to nuts kind of thing, where a company would be like, "Hey Amber, we'd love to create an AR experience for fill in the blank." Was that a good way to describe what you're doing?
Well, that's a really good question. So when you were talking about how the world's kind of in our company is kind of adapted to where the world currently is, right? Nobody was talking about metaverses last year, yet we had this exact product since 2017. It's just grown with how technology is advancing. And so what we did is we did a lot of it in augmented reality because exactly what you just mentioned, people knew what Pokemon was. So over the last 2.5 years, as the world is closed down, there's been more of a need for human connection and more of a need for fun experiences because we can't go to these pop-up experiences and these live events that we love. And so what it's done is we've built a 3D metaverse, 2D and 3D metaverse, which is kind of funny, that is just a website. You can do it on your phone. You can do it on your computer. You go in, and now, Joe, I'm actually getting to talk to you. You can see 3D models and product descriptions and videos all on one platform. But I also get to chit chat with you, and you and I can have a little whiteboard going on at the same time. So it's an always on environment that allows for, and this is what I believe is phase 1 of the metaverse.
It's interesting too, and I just experienced this, is AR is one of those tricky kind of mediums where you don't even realize you're involved in it. I was just buying something on Amazon. I needed an area rug because I have a puppy and he's constantly peeing on my rug. And they have this AR experience where you can see the carpet you're buying in your living room. And I'm like, this is the coolest thing. And then as a layperson, again, not the brightest bulb, I'm like, holy crap, this is AR. But they're not labeling it as AR. They're just like, hey, how does the rug look? So it's funny how that is such a sneaky, it's a sneaky kind of thing. It's like virtual reality, which is in your face. AR is happening and you're not even realizing it.
Exactly. And now take what the next step is from AR, which is what we're living in right now. And it's more of your 3D websites, right? Like you go to a website and it's up and down. Now imagine you go into a website.
Wow. And is that happening?
We're doing it over at AA Labs right now. And that's exactly what we're building.
How does that work because it's hard for me to like wrap my brain around that, like a website that's 3-dimensional, like.
Yeah, but that you don't have to have a headset or a phone for, right? Yeah. And so here's a great way of saying it. Right now, anybody that may have seen, if they have kids or if they play, they may have seen a version of Fortnite, right? Mm-hmm. And Fortnite is a very 3D immersive world. Let's take it back. Do you remember with Nintendo? Mario Brothers?
Yeah.
All right. Zelda. Remember some good old Zelda?
Yep.
Well, Zelda was a 2D, 3D style. So take right now kind of makes it look like real life. But instead of being super immersive where people can run through the walls and has to have a very high-powered gaming computer, imagine right now that we're kind of in that world of Zelda and Mario Brothers. Mm-hmm. Not as pixelated, still pretty, but it's a 2D, 3D style. So you can, like I said, play with your content, create it. So it's all the power of what a website would be, all the power of what YouTube is with your videos. Now add on a version of a community where you can talk to people and watch people, but I also get to see my community.
And I know you are bullish on the metaverse, and I just spoke to Les Bonsai about it. Same way, he's all into the metaverse. But I feel like, and I brought this up with Les, is the metaverse has sort of a branding problem now because now everyone thinks, oh, metaverse, that's another Mark Zuckerberg thing. This is owned by Facebook. How do we cut through that? Because I know it's not. I know he does not own it. I know it's not. He did not invent it. So do you see that as a problem in terms of mainstream acceptance of it, of like, oh my God, here we go. Now they want more of our data. This time they want it in virtual reality world or something like that.
Yeah, no, I've definitely heard that from a lot of C-levels, really big brands. And they'll be like, okay, so does this mean I have to get into the VR world? And I'm like, no, metaverse is not just VR. It is not just AR. It's not, it's multiple different ways, forums. And so I think the biggest thing is I'm always talking to like with Nike or Dell or these different companies. It's kind of, okay, where do you do to step one so that you're allowing more people in the room? And let's be honest, Zoom is not a encompassing experience. You zoom in, you talk, and you zoom out, right? What do you do that you're actually being able to be in a space, be surrounded by that brand, have the loyalty, actually get to help create some of the product, be a part of a true part of a community with other people? And that is where I believe phase one of the metaverse is. Look, we saw this with esports. The more the people that come into the space and do good in it, and water rises. So I think the more people that get in and start talking it and showing what good looks like, the more people will understand. Because there is no world that we don't go to the next phase of the internet, which is the metaverse.
And I know a lot of people have called the metaverse Web 3.0, the next version of the web. When people say that to me, I'm like, so that just mean it's just like another website I'm going on to? So how would you walk people through accessing the metaverse? And you mentioned the fact that it's not just a VR thing. So how do people access the metaverse, or in the future, how do you see them easily accessing the metaverse?
Now, there's where it is. It's in the future, right? So right now, you'll see some of the 3D worlds that have happened around Complex Con or Burning Man or some of those, right? But you can access them only through a computer. And so it's still we really are still in the very beginning phases. I'm going to use the same analogy I used before of like Nintendo or Zelda. Look where that was and look where we are with Halo and Call of Duty and then Fortnite, right? And so I think people understanding that and knowing how to get into the metaverse in phase one without feeling like they're wasting a lot of money. One question was asked to me yesterday from a big brand. They're like, do I only get to use the metaverse or NFTs for brand awareness? Can it not help me make sales? And I said, if you're doing it wrong, that would be correct. To do it correctly, you should be making sales because data is more prevalent of people actually choosing to give you their data, visually seeing it in a visual website. And then now they want to give you their data because they're getting to be a part of the community and the voice. There's a huge differentiator, I think, with Web 2 and Web 3.
And when you talk about the analogy you're making about Zelda to like gaming now, that's probably like what, over a span of 30 years.
You're exactly right.
I can't imagine the metaverse taking 30 years for it to get to that point, right? So what are you thinking timeline-wise as to where it becomes so ubiquitous that, grandma's got, an Oculus on or she's accessing the metaverse some other way?
Yeah, because I don't think it will be a closed off environment of VR as the future personally. I believe that, I am seeing technology that I wanted to do some stuff with real life avatars that look exactly like a human and can be done through some back end AI that's just crazy. And I've been working on some of these projects for 2 years. And in the last year, it has accelerated 5 years of progress in 1 year because the digital is just so prevalent right now. So I would not be surprised by 2030, a lot of the things that people are talking about will be prevalent. Because exactly, we're not dealing with, do you remember when social media came out and people are like, how do I monetize on this?
Yeah.
Well, we know how to monetize on the internet. We're not trying to learn the internet. What we're trying to do is how do we make it more visual? Because what we visually see, we 60% learn faster, right? And so what the phase one of Metaverse is how are we creating things in more real-time, immersive, play and learning with ongoing communication.
And do you see the rapid growth accelerated because we're living in this COVID world where people, I hate to say it, but I say it all the time, like COVID's not going anywhere. It's always going to be lingering around. Do you think, and I don't mean this in like a dark way or something but it's like, do you feel like that's going to help what you're doing grow faster just because of the fact that people are going to look for experiences and they're not going to be able to go to, X, Y, or Z, in their local community?
Yes, definitely. And I don't think it's just a COVID thing. I think when people think they're doing a Band-Aid, they need to go ahead and move past that. Virtual should not be a Band-Aid. Virtual is a way to reach all those people that couldn't get there in person. So if you're hosting an event, I remember one brand telling me, well, normally our conference has 2,000 people, but since we did it virtually, the whole world was able to go of all of our different partners, and we had 55,000 people.
Wow.
And then they're like, now we're going to go back and it's 2,000. And I was like, why would you leave all those people and not continue to talk to them?
Right.
And I think that's the shifting. Esports and live streaming of gaming and building those gaming communities wasn't a COVID thing. It was a way to connect with more people all over the world. We're a global world. We're a global audience in all of our brands and our charities and our cares. Why wouldn't you want to be communicating across the waters?
It's crazy. Obviously, you're making a living out of it, but it's crazy how a lot of major brands have embraced the metaverse and Web 3.0 and are investing in it and getting involved in it. I'm sure you're taking plenty of meetings with major brands about it, and you see lists of folks that are signing up for the metaverse. Are you surprised at how quick people have become early adopters to this world? Even though I know this has been around for years, but the fact that it's had such a big, it's gotten so much recognition over the past year. How fast this is going in terms of mainstream, recognition.
Yeah, I think a perfect quote that I heard that sums up that, it was one of the head executives at Nintendo, and he said, Amber, he goes, I had 61 crayons in my crayon book by box, and 59 of them got thrown out. And he goes, as an executive, you don't have the luxury of waiting around if you actually want your brand to be successful. And he's exactly right. You have to see what is out there. And like you mentioned before, it's changing every month. What we did last year at this time in 3D worlds with avatars, we're now noticed that people would spend 40 minutes creating an avatar and only 15 minutes in the space. Well, that's kind of opposite of what a brand wants.
Right.
So why not have them as their videos now, just like you would do on Zoom, except your circle can walk around and your representation is your video, and your avatars are now your NFTs or your digital things in your locker. So it's really cool where it's going.
Do you feel, and it sounds like it, do you feel like a lot of C-suite executives and the decision makers at companies are so afraid to become dinosaurs that they're willing to almost take a big swing in the metaverse early than in past years? And the reason I bring this up is a few years ago I was involved in a TV show, and it was right around the time that Twitter was like taking off and everyone was just tweeting. And basically the executive producer was basing the content on the show as to what the audience was saying to them on Twitter. And I remember saying to him, like, why are you doing that? And he goes, and this guy was like 60 years old. He goes, listen, I've been surrounded by dinosaurs in my entire career, and I've been in the entertainment industry for like 30 years, and I don't want to become a dinosaur. So if Twitter is where it's at and Twitter's telling me what the content should be, I'm going to do that. Do you find a lot of executives are like that? They do not want to go the way of the dodo bird and the T-Rex?
It's interesting. I'm finding a split. I'm finding executives that are like, got really burned when virtual reality first came out, and they wasted money in building in that product, and the adaptability wasn't out there. You create a great product, but if nobody has a headset, right? And so they would have money wasted, and agencies would sell in things that knowing that it would get them money, but it would not build an actual, not just brand awareness, but also sales. But if on the other side, what I've found is if you go to any executive and say, okay, I'm going to be able to give you a product that lets you talk directly to your community, and you get to have the data, not your Facebook channels, not your YouTube channels. You get direct data, direct communication, and you're going to be able to have their help shaping your product development. Oh, and by the way, they can buy it right there because everybody in the world does online shopping. Right. And then you also can be able to hear back from them, let them buy, and then you've got the data to know if they liked it or if they didn't before you even made it. I mean, when you look at something like that, it'd be quite silly not to take it serious.
And you've call yourself a forever gamer girl, and and I'm sure you felt and heard the snickers and the jokes about gamers, in their parents' basement. But it is interesting that the gaming industry has quietly become like this $1 trillion industry, and those jokes have sort of faded away. But you've seen it from the beginning, from the snarky jokes, and now all of a sudden it's like this booming industry. Could you ever have believed it? That little girl in playing her Xbox with her friends in Germany. That now all of a sudden you're like, everybody wants to be involved in this industry.
Up until 2013, till 11, 12 was the Galen Arena. Up until that day, no. When I saw all those people together and then being able to see the digital audience also drop in and then being able to hear that my family all over the US was like logging in and other people's family, you realize then that with visibility and community, you can get people to believe that it is a true audience. And I think that's one of the things that drives me every day in building products and in building this AA platform is how do I create more platforms that more people are in the room and it gets them out of their bubbles so they can truly see that they are multidimensional, they have multidimensional interest, and we are not just one stereotype.
And do you find it funny that there's also these other sort of avenues to make money in this business, like the gambling gaming industry, which I interviewed one of the guys who runs a company in Canada a while back. Do you like what they're gambling over gaming? Did you, again, I know you've been forward thinking and an early adopter, but like the ways that this people have made money out of gaming, is that shocking to you?
Well, I mean, if you think about that, that's the very same as what they did with baseball and football, and if gaming is just another sport, wouldn't it be the same thing?
Yeah, well, no, but I'm just saying it's crazy to think that it's gotten here that fast, because the fact that people bet on football was sort of like that dirty little secret until all of a sudden football was like, wait a minute, we can make money off this. Oh, okay, now we're going to sell our ads to DraftKings and FanDuel and stuff like that. That took 60 years. It took gaming less than 10 to become some sort of gambling destination.
Hey, but do you know why? Because you can reach millions. Millions can be in the room. That's the whole point, right? Yeah. Why did it take 60 years? Because maybe it didn't make it to every single pocket of every little tiny town, right? It's got to spread slowly. I mean, when I was growing up, I had never been to an art museum until I was 22, right? It took 10 years longer. We weren't dumber in East Texas. It takes longer to come from the big cities out there, right? But the internet makes it more accessible for everyone. So how do we keep making more of the internet more powerful, not to divide and not to create bigger bubbles, but to make it more of a true place to connect and learn from each other?
I have this running joke that it's illegal now to have a startup that's not based in Austin. And and you as a Texas girl, again, I hate to keep going back to like this, could you ever imagine, but is it crazy to you that like Texas, and now I don't think Austin's not the only city, I think Houston as well, but like there's these multiple cities in Texas and across the country, like Pittsburgh and Nashville have become like tech hubs. But like, is it shocking to you as this East Texas girl to be like, what? Texas is like a startup hub? We've become the new Silicon Valley? This is crazy.
We're not becoming Silicon Valley. We still love our artists and our musicians.
You do, but you got a lot of startups there, Amber. You got a lot of startups.
We do. Yeah. You know what? I love it. I love the brilliant people that are moving here. I do these get-togethers that are old Austin meets new Austin. And I say, come on and help us build. Don't try to change us. We're not Silicon Valley. We're not LA, and we're not New York. We're Austin. And so let us be and build in it. And let's, one of the things I think is the most powerful thing I've ever noticed when I moved here 4 years ago in Austin is they're amazing connectors. People don't connect you to be like, hey, I want something from you, so I'll do this. I've really loved how people genuinely respect your time, but connect when they know it's a good person you should talk to. And that's super powerful. A great thing for a city, Yeah,
no, it's awesome. But you got to keep it weird, right? Isn't that their big thing? keep Austin weird.
Honey, we still do chicken shit bingo on Sundays, so.
It is a very odd sort of blend there, because it's like it is this there's this weird shit going down, but then there's like $1 billion company like down the street, so it's bizarre how that at least Silicon Valley was like there was like nothing there. They're like farms and like factories, and then it built up from there. But like people were there in Austin. I remember Dazed and Confused when that came out. People were living there, so it's not like it sprouted out of nothing. So I always found that fascinating. All right, so let's wrap up with a quick little sales pitch, Amber, because I know AA Labs is the platform that enables human connection and amplifies community. That's what it says on the homepage. Who is this for? Like what kind of entrepreneur, what kind of company can really benefit from getting involved, not only in the space, but getting involved with AA Labs?
So here at AA Labs, our platform really focuses on B2B. And with B2B, like we work with companies like Dell and Trish for NASA and Apple, but we also work with companies like the Kindness Campaign and the executive conferences. And so it's definitely a product that allows you to play and engage. Who wouldn't want to make work fun? Because what we enjoy and what we interact with, we remember. And so we've really found that it's great for sales enablement. It's great for employee engagement. And we still have that B2B2C component where brands can be able to have their consumers on and have loyalty programs and be able to really, like I said before, talk to them and let them have a voice.
And lastly, Amber, when you start up a company, it's basically your child. It's your baby. What's it like having AA Labs as your shining baby boy, baby girl, whatever? like how does that feel to you to have this thing that you've sort of nestled through from 2013, and it's shocking to believe that it's almost it's going to be 10 years on
Wow.
in that, Amber.
Yeah.
So you've got like a 10-year-old baby now. So tell me about what that all feels like for you.
Yeah, it's funny. I like to say it's not a baby; it's a teenager. I'm about ready for it to come out. No, you know what? It's really exciting. I mean, I'm bootstrapped. I own 100% of the company. I have equity for my employees, and we've hit over 10 million in recurring AR and tech, and we're building stuff, right? And so it's exactly. I love this. I'm extremely passionate about being an entrepreneur and building my business, but I want to build a product that helps change the world, and I will. And so for me, it's super exciting to see the people that have been with me. I've got employees with me for 7 years, 6 years, 5 years. And it's really cool as we are going to that next phase of our business, starting to talk to investors, really scale this business, to see that the rest of the world is also now talking about digital worlds and tech and things that we've been building in for a couple of years.
I bet your life is a lot easier in 2022 than it was in 2013, though. I'm sure that's probably the understatement of the century.
Yeah, and I think what's funny is someone asked me, "How do you stay sane as an entrepreneur?" And I go, "Well, I have to have play. Like that's my biggest thing that has helped me, because I didn't think burnout was a thing, because I love what I do and I love what I build, so it doesn't feel like it's like, oh, you got to choose work or personal." Yeah. But I realized about year 5 that I love to play. Like I'm building like an old Bronco, and I have this quote now, my team laughs, but I always say, every day that childlike Amber high fives adult Amber, I win.
I love that. Her name is Amber Allen. She's the founder and CEO of AA Labs. It's such a great story, Amber. I'm really excited about the future. And, I've been speaking to folks involved in the metaverse, and I'm slowly but surely coming over to Team Metaverse. But, as a Gen Xer, you look at everything, with a side eye, and you're like, what is this shit all about? But it's great to see what you're doing, and I cannot wait to see what the future holds for AA Labs.
Thank you. Thanks for having me today.
You're so welcome. And that's it for this edition of the Forbes Books Podcast. If you enjoy the show, make sure you take a second to subscribe so you automatically get my new shows when they drop. Also, if you have a minute, I would love if you left us a review so more amazing entrepreneurs like yourself can discover the show. And please, don't forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.